You already know what time it is. Welcome back into the NFL with AJL, episode 88. Thank you for joining us for a late night evening edition of the show. Just me tonight, but we still will be talking about college football, of course. Intro music was having a little bit of a hiccup, so that's why it's got a cold intro tonight. Hope y'all are staying warm, staying safe out there, enjoying the new year. It is absolutely freezing here in Georgia, expecting some ice and snow potentially over Friday and Saturday. So if y'all are caught up in any sort of snowstorm or winter, y'all please definitely stay safe. And again, thanks for popping in and joining the show. You had plenty of options and you're right here tapped in with me. Before we get going, y'all please make sure to like and share the stream wherever you're watching. Subscribe on YouTube. Please hit the bell as well. The QR code there is every bit of social media and podcast content. We are officially making a comeback with our short form content, Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, all that good stuff. Shout out to my boy Felix Stewart with Media by PS. He's going to be really hooking us up. Appreciate the fair deals that he's given us to be able to give you guys that short form content on all the social media platforms. Because if you keep up with the show, you know that we're mainly just YouTube, Rumble, LinkedIn, and then some Facebook as well. But I want to be able to get that short form content out there for you guys. Y'all get in the chat in the comments as well and let me know what you're thinking about the show tonight. We got a packed one. We're going to be previewing the college football playoff semifinals, predicting the entire NFL bracket from the Super Wildcard weekend all the way until the Super Bowl. We've got some New Orleans Saints news. We're also going to be talking about NFL Black Monday, and it's official that Tyreek Hill wants out of the Miami Dolphins. So let's jump right into the top of the show. As I mentioned, the CFP semifinals are upon us. We're going to start tomorrow night, or really Thursday, 7:30 Eastern time. We're going to have the Orange Bowl with Notre Dame facing off against Penn State. Notre Dame is favored by 1.5 points in this game, and I think honestly, rightfully so. When you have a big win like Marcus Freeman against Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, the biggest win of his career, the number 2 ranked team in the nation, and honestly, just seeing how it's been a playoff game for Notre Dame ever since they lost to Northern Illinois, it is kind of fair to feel that they are favored in this game, and even before I really dug into it on this one, my emotional Bulldog self was saying, I think Penn State's, going to really outmatch them. I argue that Notre Dame might have been the weakest team left in the CFP semifinal next to Texas, but it kind of seems like all 4 of these teams are pretty evenly matched. And I will still give Penn State some credit with the way that they played SMU, with the way that they played Boise State. But we really have a battle of 2 coaches who previously have not won a big game up until this point. Of course, we know Penn State with 2 playoff wins getting into the bracket, and obviously James Franklin able to, nail down some of those wins. Yes, he does get a win over SMU. Yes, over a Boise State, but it doesn't necessarily feel as, big or impressive as Marcus Freeman's win over the number 2, first round bye seeded Georgia Bulldogs, which is a really tough watch. You guys heard me get on the show and talk about it, but shout out to Marcus Freeman. I feel like he is the better coach in this matchup. Now, that's not to say that James Franklin won't come forward and, with the roster of Penn State, between Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, obviously Tyler Warren at the tight end position. Drew Aller has been improving week by week, as you guys have heard Allen say on the show. And I think it's going to be a pretty solid matchup. I think we have a big-time defensive battle in this game. Now, it is unfortunate that there is still no Riley Mills for Notre Dame, but if you watch the way that Notre Dame was exploiting the left side of that Georgia offensive line, and it might not be the exact same thing here with Penn State, but Notre Dame took notes. Notre Dame's going to be coming to play the same way that they did against the Bulldogs, and this is the best defense probably left in college football next to the Ohio State Buckeyes. Really, all 4 teams that are left have great defenses, but when you're able to lead the nation in turnovers, you lead the nation far and away by points off turnovers, it's really hard not to give that nod to this Notre Dame defense. And if Riley Mills was playing in this one, I would feel even more solid quarterback battle on our hands as well. It's not like Riley Leonard or Drew Aller are absolutely frightening jumping off paper. And, I would like Drew Aller's passing game and arm overall over Riley Leonard, but the way that Marcus Freeman is able to have those creative runs, able to throw in those decoys, those QB draws, those QB sweeps, powers for Riley Leonard, we saw it against Georgia. Riley Leonard only had to throw for 90 yards, but he ran for 80, and Notre Dame won comfortably by 13. Now, yes, we know they had that magical 17-point barrage in about 60 seconds of the game, and the offense was non-existent in other parts, which again was kind of making me have my reservations about this Notre Dame team. But when you pull the emotion out of it, apply the logic, and really research the 2 teams that are in this matchup in the CFP, you got to give hats off to both quarterbacks that are in it. Can Notre Dame's special teams prevail again? I feel like that is the really big question, because we see their special teams. They're able to, trick Georgia on the 11 all sub. They sub the 11 in after pulling the punt team off. Georgia gets their sub in, then they get them on the fake snap. We see the kickoff run back. We see the couple of special teams advantages that Notre Dame had against the Georgia Bulldogs. And it just makes me wonder what's up their sleeve for this one. Are they going to be able to come out and prevail against Penn State in this football game the way that they did against Georgia? I don't know if Notre Dame can necessarily look to have those same types of breaks against Penn State like they did against Georgia, which, echoing the same sentiment again, made me have my reservations about this Notre Dame team. Well, they're not going to get a Gunnar Stockton, who's essentially a rookie quarterback in, college football. His first start, his first snaps being, meaningful snaps being in the second half of a SEC championship, first start in a college football playoff game. Are they going to be able to take advantage of a coach in Kirby Smart who had a lot of personal issues going on? And I'm not making any excuses, but that's going to take up your mind share. I don't know if Notre Dame can specifically bank on those in this game. I don't know if they can bank on a weak offensive line in this game. A teams whose, defense and offense had been sputtering up until that point in the Georgia Bulldogs. So it will be a good question to see if Notre Dame can have those same advantages and really if the special teams can prevail again. Overall, I like Penn State's dominance and really resume compared to Notre Dame's, because when you have the way that they beat SMU, despite who they are, when you have the way that they beat Boise State, despite who they are, but knowing that you hold Ashton Jeanty to under 140 for the first time all year, you take out his long run, I think it was on 3rd and 21, and he's got, 29 carries for 78 yards, 26 carries for 78 yards. Nonetheless, we know that Ashton Jeanty was shut down. So that Penn State defense really did come to play, and just the way that they've been dominating, I feel like overall throughout the season, and again, especially their resume throughout the regular season stacked up to this point in the playoffs, it is favorable. But you take a look at that Notre Dame defense, who, has an argument to be the best defense left in college football after what they did to the Georgia Bulldogs in the Sugar Bowl. And just the defeat of Georgia speaks absolute volumes. The rosters are very comparable on both sides of the ball as well, whether you're talking about the quarterbacks, you're talking about, the running backs, you got Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, you're talking about Nick Singleton, Katron Allen. Obviously, you got Bo Collins for Notre Dame. Obviously, Tyler Warren, for Penn State as well. I will, ironically, after all that being said, Ryan Allen, everyone that's been listening into the show that's been talking to me ever since the Dogs lost, that I wanted Penn State to win. Sanjay, if you're listening to this, I'm going against the Nittany Lions. Give me Notre Dame to win this game outright as the favorites. They're, again, favored by 1.5. Give me Notre Dame beating Penn State 21-7. Penn State, what's up, man? Or not Penn State. I guess I could call you Penn State, right? What's up, Logan? Hope to see you at the next meetup, brother. Penn State is my squad. I'm so nervous. I totally understand that, man. Y'all are playing a hell of a team in Notre Dame coming in, and they're riding the high off of the win against Georgia. So Penn State's going to have to bring their best game. You're going to have to get Singleton. You're going to have to get Allen in space. You're going to have to continue to have Drew Aller really improve week over week like he has. And James Franklin's got to step up to the table, because he could possibly get out coached in this game, just like Kirby Smart got out coached by Marcus Freeman. Let's jump into the Cotton Bowl, which is going to be on Friday, January 10th, I believe at 7:30 Eastern time for us. Again, we've got Ohio State, big favorites of the weekend, just like Texas had been the biggest favorites of the college football playoff so far. Biggest favorites of the weekend, Ohio State -5.5 taking on Texas in the Cotton Bowl. And, honestly, Texas cannot be afraid to get creative with Arch Manning in this game if Quinn Ewers is falling short or falling flat. I'll say that again. Texas cannot be afraid to get creative with Arch Manning, whether it's quarterback runs, you're putting him in for a drive. If Quinn's falling flat in the first half or on the first few drives, Steve Sark cannot be afraid to pull Arch Manning into that game. I know Arch might not be taking all of the first team snaps like you want him to be, and this has been Quinn's offense to run. But when you have inexcusable performances like in the second half against Georgia in the SEC title game, really that whole game, right? Arch Manning gets 2 snaps. One of them, he didn't even touch the ball. It was a direct snap through the legs, which was a nice play to convert for the down, no doubt about it. But Arch Manning is a weapon. And I'm not saying he has to be the end-all, be-all in this, but I really believe if Sark does come out and possibly does not really get creative in some way with Arch Manning or get creative with that offense, this Ohio State defense and even just this team and Ryan Day, who is foaming at the mouth as the best team left in college football, they're going to eat them absolutely alive. And we've seen spurts of Quinn Ewers this year to where he's, not looked great down the stretch or, might have thrown for a ton of yards, but they might be garbage yards or, garbage points at a certain point. And I'm not crapping on Sark, Texas, Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning, none of that. But Steve Sarkisian cannot be afraid to take it to that extra aspect in this game. I think the biggest question looming over this one, with Ohio State being 5.5 point favorites, is can they continue to dominate as they did in the last two rounds? I mean, absolutely snuffing Tennessee out for everything they were worth. Of course, rolling through Oregon, the most impressive win of the year, probably by any college football team thus far. And the dominance has just been absolutely undeniable. Again, Ohio State, who can stop them? Who's going to stop Ohio State right now? They literally are the best team left in college football. Look, anybody's got as good a chance as Ohio State, but I feel like Ohio State is in that separate, tier one, S tier type of team right now. When you come out and dominate the way that you do in the first round after losing to Michigan, which again was the best thing to happen to them before these playoffs started. Ryan Day lit a fire under these guys' asses. Will Howard, Quinshaw Junkins, Travion Henderson, Emeka Ibuka, Jeremiah Smith, that offensive line, Caleb Downs on the defense. These dudes are on fire. And I just really don't know if Texas is going to be able to stop this Ohio State team as they've been popping off in the last couple of rounds. And I think we have pretty comparable rosters on both sides of the ball as well. You look at Ohio State again, Will Howard, Judkins, Travion Henderson. You've got Jeremiah Smith, who just lit Oregon up for almost 200 and 2 touchdowns. He did light them up for 2 touchdowns in the first half and almost 200 yards on the game on just 7 catches. God forbid if you get Emeka Ibuka involved and, even more of Travion Henderson and Quinshaw Junkins. Ryan Day has, again, the most expensive roster in college football, the most talented team and roster in the country. So it should be able to outweigh Texas' side of the ball. And, again, Caleb Downs on the defensive side. We know what the defensive line at Ohio State, the Ohio State University, represents. You take a look at the Texas Longhorns. Again, you got Quinn, you got Arch Manning, you got Wisner, you got Blue. I think Texas's secondary in this game, Texas's wide receiver room in this game could really be the difference maker, because you can argue it's one of the best in the country. I mean, both of these wide receiver rooms are very elite. You got Gunnar Helm, who's one of the best, if not the best, tight end in college football. You've got You've got Golden, you've got Bolden, and you've got Isaiah Bond. That is insane speed in the wide receiver room, not to mention the backs that you have as well. Of course, we have Michael Taft on the defensive side of the ball. We've seen that defensive line, that front seven of Texas. So both of these rosters are extremely comparable. And I think if Texas's wide receivers can find a gap in that Ohio State secondary, Texas has a chance to take this one away. I don't think they will. I'll give you the score prediction in just a second. Another similar coaching matchup, you ask yourself, when's the last time you feel like Ohio State had a big win besides with Oregon this season? A real meaningful one that you feel like impacted the season to give them the type of hype like they have now, because we've seen them 4 straight losses to Michigan in the regular season, still trying to find their way, to get to that national championship of the CFP. Of course, they win it back in 2014. They go to the Natty again with Justin Fields, and then you have Steve Sarkisian, who has started to emerge. We see Texas come out of the Big 12. We see them playing in the semifinals last year. They're in the semifinals again this year. We remember them last year against Washington, just kind of giving it everything they had. And, unfortunately, they weren't able to make it happen. But again, I feel like this coaching matchup has elite coaches. The last coaching matchup in the Orange Bowl, it has great coaches. I wouldn't say elite. Those coaches are great. I would give a slight nod to Marcus Freeman over James Franklin for that Georgia win. And again, this is another defensive showdown when you look at Ohio State versus Texas. Ohio State being the second best, if not the best defense left in college football. And maybe me as a biased Georgia fan, I'm just scarred by the way that they did my Bulldogs last week. And again, when you lead the country in takeaways and you by far and away lead the country in points off takeaways, it's very hard to push back against that. And we know what Texas has been all year as well. They have one of the top rated defenses. We know what they bring to the table in the front seven. But again, I don't see anybody stopping. Good to see you in the chat. Really appreciate you jumping in. Yeah, that part right there. Ohio State, I don't see them being stopped by Texas. It could get ugly. I think where Texas has earned some respect the last couple of weeks. You might not like, if you're a Texas or even not a Texas fan, the way that they're able to slip away against Arizona State. But I will take Ohio State to win this one 28-21. With an Ohio State and Notre Dame national championship. That will be on Monday, January 20th in Atlanta, Georgia. We will hold the predictions until the following week. That way we can get them out to you guys. Let's go ahead and jump into this 2024-25 NFL season playoff bracket predictions as we've got Super Bowl 58 being held in New Orleans, Louisiana. We're going to have amazing teams potentially representing the NFC and the AFC. Of course, we know that the Detroit Lions get the bye in the NFC after their massive victory over the Minnesota Vikings, and the Kansas City Chiefs, maybe the weirdest 15-2 team we've ever seen. I mean, let's just really call it what it is, and the fact that they're able to secure that first round bye as well. I want to go ahead and see if I can pull the what's it called, the bracket up right here for you guys. I love for us to be able to jump into it. Let's see. What's the best? Yeah, we'll just go like this right here. Well, no. Let me see. I think we'll just let it ride like this. Hold on, let me see if I can drop this background real fast. Now we'll leave that up. I know the background really ain't that oh no, did it go away? Really? Hold on. Background. Okay, you know what? That works. Sorry, guys. Sorry about the delay. Let's go ahead and jump in and predict the entire NFL playoff bracket for the 2024-25 NFL season. We'll start on the left side here so you guys can follow along with me. I'm going to take Minnesota over the Rams. Minnesota! I cannot get that meme out of my head. Sorry, guys. The brain had to let that one out. Minnesota over the Rams here. And I think this could be a great coaching matchup. You might want to give the nod to the Rams being at home. The way that Minnesota, ended the season against the Detroit Lions, it might make you a little nervous nonetheless. But when you take a look at, how Minnesota has played all year, they are a 14-3 team for a reason. Now, yes, the Rams are 10-7, no doubt. But I just really like the overall roster, the dominance that the Vikings have been showing me this year. I like Sean McVay as the coach over Kevin O'Connell, maybe not by a very wide margin, but I do believe that, Kevin, give me the Vikings to move on, and they will be take Lions in the first round. Just like he said, I'll see you in 2 weeks. Dan Campbell was very confident that the Vikings were going to beat the Rams. I will take the Commanders over the Buccaneers as well. I think that could be a very close game. You can't sleep on the fact that the Buccaneers have won the division 4 years in a row. But the Washington Commanders are very special right now. Very, very special with the roster that they built, especially with Jaden Daniels, Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury proving me wrong. I will take Washington to win this one and move on to the next round. And then I will take Philadelphia hosting Green Bay at home in the first round of the playoffs, Super Wildcard Weekend. I just love everything that Philadelphia is bringing to the table. I mean, how can you not like what Philadelphia has been doing lately? They find their guys in Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio. I knew those guys are going to be elite hires. You look at Nick Sirianni, he only got the coordinators wrong once in a season. You bring it back out, you're in the playoffs, you don't have to face the Bucs. Now, the Packers will be a good matchup. Let's not sleep on Matt LaFleur. Let's not sleep on Jordan Love and all of the talent that they have there. But I think anybody sitting here would not want to go to Lincoln Financial Field as a Packers fan or a Packers player and actually have to play the Eagles. So give me the Eagles to move on. So we will have the Eagles and the Commanders, an NFC East showdown with the Vikings and the Lions on the left side for the divisional. Now let's go to the right where we have the Chargers taking on the Houston Texans, the 4 seed in the playoffs. Texans are going to be at home. We have experienced CJ Stroud have a little bit of a sophomore slump. We know that. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on the Texans head coach right now, but we've also seen that's going to bug me. What's crazy is I know his name, but I just cannot recall it right now. Not Texas head coach. Texans head coach. D'Amico Ryans. We've seen D'Amico Ryans have a little bit of an odd season this year as well. Is he going to have his team very prepared being at home? We know that they lost Stephon Diggs earlier in the year, which could really show up in this playoff time, not having those weapons for CJ Stroud. We do see Caleb Williams put up similar numbers to CJ Stroud, after they have that meeting after the Texans played the Bears. And, we'd like to say certain things about Caleb Williams, but I think we have to keep it a buck with CJ as well. And don't get me wrong, I was on this show last year saying that CJ Stroud was 100% an MVP candidate, so y'all don't come for me in the comments. And, not having Tank Dell is really going to hurt. Really, really going to hurt as well. And then you have the Chargers coming in. This is Jim Harbaugh's first playoff appearance. He's with the Chargers. He's going to be on the road, but the NFL playoffs aren't uncharted territory to him. He totally understands what's happening in the playoffs. He understands he's on the road against the Texans, and Justin Herbert being able to break out. Having that new culture, that new camaraderie with the Chargers, hoping that defense can be better, that you don't have a 27-point blown lead like you did a couple of years ago to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, yes, of course, you do not have Brandon Staley here. I do believe this team. I know this team is in much better standing. As much as I want to take the Texans, and I've taken the Texans in previous talks with my friends, as I'm sitting here on the show, episode 88, I feel like the coaching of Jim Harbaugh, I just feel like something's telling me on the inside he's going to be more ready. He's been here before. Now, so has DeMeco Ryans. But I just feel like Jim's going to have his team better prepared. So give me the Chargers to move on to face Kansas City in the divisional. We'll have the Ravens hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll take the Ravens in this one. I think Lamar Jackson is undoubtedly your MVP. I know people want to compare Josh Allen's numbers and they want to compare the touchdowns, but Lamar, 41 touchdowns, 4 picks. Come on now. I mean, come on. Let's be real here. Lamar Jackson is the MVP. And I did get on here and say that Josh Allen should be the MVP a couple of weeks ago, but the way that Lamar has played since then, he's clearly locking it up. And we see the Steelers. We see them, struggle with the Bengals. Even though the Steelers had made the playoffs, they struggle and barely beat a team that's not even in the playoffs this year. So that is nerve-wracking. How is Mike Tomlin going to be able to handle this team and get them prepared? You already have these sentiments of George Pickens' commitment to the team leaking out, by multiple broadcasters. And even when you see the play on film and on TV as well, you got to be careful with some of these players and receivers that, Pittsburgh has been harboring over the last couple of years. I mean, you see them move on from Chase Claypool, rightfully so. Another great coaching matchup here as well. I mean, you look all through the first round on both sides, great coaching matchups all the way around. So really the best teams in the NFL did make it to the playoffs this year. And that's how it is every year, right? I love the way that they seed the field. I really think college football should imitate them as well. Give me the Baltimore Ravens to win this game, though, 100%. I just think they're the better team than Pittsburgh. Now, it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a scrappy one. It's a divisional matchup, but I think anybody sitting here would comfortably pick Baltimore, not only for that offense, but that defense is going to be able to come around as well. Kyle Hamilton, of course, Roquan Smith. Maybe could have had a better season, according to some people, but still one of the premier elite linebackers in this league. And then the final game of Wild Card Weekend, as the Ravens beat the Steelers and move on, I will take the Bills to beat the Broncos. Now, this is going to be a sneaky one as well. Shout out to Sean Payton. Shout out Bo Nix, Pat Surtain. Everybody that is over there seriously holding it down. Nick Bonito as well. He's with the Broncos, right? No, hold on one second. Yep, linebacker Nick Bonito looking very solid. And you just got to give a shout out. Got to give an absolute shout out. Yes, baby, the Ravens, 100% the Ravens. They are coming in to win it. Y'all please make sure to subscribe. We're at 991. We've been stuck at 991 for so long. We got to get to 1,000 to get that monetization over the top for you guys to bring you even better content. But I'm going to take the Bills in this one. Now again, shout out Sean Payton and Bo Nix, the entire Denver offense and what, that Denver team and what they've been able to do. I really felt like in that second year for Sean Payton, he was going to be able to make things click. Now, it wasn't with Russell Wilson, but it was with his quarterback that he absolutely wanted to go get in the draft, and he was able to do that. And now he has a playoff appearance, albeit it is the 7th seed on the road in Buffalo. It's probably going to be absolutely freezing out there when they play this weekend, but you got to roll with what you got. I do believe Buffalo is head, shoulders, knees, and toes the better team. Maybe don't like the coach as much as I like Sean Payton. No Saints bias there. I just do believe that Sean Payton at this point is a better coach in his career than Sean McDermott. And if he gets this playoff win, if the Broncos upset the Bills, that'll be even more to be shown and be desired for Sean Payton's resume. So give me the Bills here. I think it could be an easy win, but if it's scrappy, I'm not surprised at all. So winning in Wild Card Weekend, we've got the Vikings, the Commanders, the Eagles. We've got the Chargers, the Ravens, and the Bills, which means we have Bills, Ravens on the AFC divisional. We have Chargers, Chiefs. In the other AFC divisional, we have a rematch of the Vikings and Lions in the NFC divisional, and we have an NFC East matchup in the Eagles and the Washington Commanders. And let me not forget, we have the AFC West matchup up there in the top right with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers. We'll start on the NFC side again. Another rematch, a third meeting of these teams. We have the Vikings, we have the Lions. I'm going to take the Lions to win again. I don't think it's a 31-9 type of thing, but I just think the Lions are the better football team. And I know that they've got injuries piled up. There's no question about that. They've got injuries piled up, but they're still winning. Come again? A 15-2 record for the Lions? These Detroit Lions that went winless in 2008 with Dan Campbell? Yeah, it's those Lions, but it's not the same Lions. These Lions are going to come into this game, absolutely beat Minnesota. Again, when you look at the game that just happened this past week, it's very clear who the better team is. I like the quarterback better. I love the backfield of the Lions. You got to fall in love with the wide receivers as well, the way that their defense is able to play. Um, you know, Aaron Glenn, Dan Campbell, they're just loaded. It's the best team, arguably, in the NFL. Give me the Lions to their second straight NFC championship. Well, we've got the Eagles and the Washington Commanders. Going to be an absolutely great game. Could the Washington Commanders sneak into the NFC championship for their first time being under head coach? Being under head coach Dan Quinn. I'm going to take the Eagles to win this one. They've been here before. They're very experienced. It's very hard to ask a rookie quarterback who, in Jaden Daniels, has been absolutely great, but it is going to be very hard to ask him to step up to the plate in this way in a playoff game. It's not even that Jaden Daniels' character can't do it, but I just think that Eagles defense and Vic Fangio is going to give him a lot of problems. I think the Eagles top to bottom are better than the Commanders. Now, again, they're very comparable. Dan Quinn, Nick Sirianni, maybe they're not comparable as coaches, but Dan Quinn's job this year has been absolutely remarkable. You go look at that coaching staff. You go and look at those rosters. Jalen Hurts and Jaden Daniels. It's going to be an absolutely great quarterback matchup. I'll take the Eagles to move on. Lions, Eagles, NFC Championship. Chargers, Chiefs. Another great game. Chiefs will be at home. As always, they are in the playoffs, and I'll have them winning and moving on to an AFC championship. I think this is where Andy Reid really makes everybody look stupid. We've been having all of these worst 15-2 Chiefs takes all year. They still got DeAndre Hopkins. They still got Isaiah Pacheco. They still have Patrick Mahomes. Steve Spagnuolo, despite getting head coaching interviews, is still their defensive coordinator and has been the big reason why that defense has turned around, why that defense has been able to cover up some of those mistakes that the offense has been making. Again, a very weird 15-2 NFL team in front of us that now has the first round bye and is going to be punching their ticket to the AFC Championship. It's going to be a great coaching matchup between Andy Reid, Jim Harbaugh. Again, these rosters clashing with each other, the quarterback matchup, the defensive matchup. It is going to be truly special. I will take the Chiefs in a tight one. If the Chargers win, I'm not shocked. And then you'd have Jim Harbaugh, first-year coach, in the AFC title game. Give me the Chiefs to move on. I just think Andy Reid and Mahomes go to a whole nother level. They pull out a part of the playbook that no one in the league has seen all year, and they're in their umpteenth AFC championship game looking to get to that three-peat. And then we have a Bills and a Ravens. Amazing. It's a shame that one of these two teams has to lose to start the week. One of these two teams will not get to go to the AFC title game. Both of these teams, I personally believe, are better than Kansas City. But when you win 15 games, when you get a first-round bye, nobody can really say shit to you. So Bills, Ravens, again, going to be a great matchup. What more could you ask for than the competitors of the MVP trophy this year facing off against each other? The receiving cores, the defense, the coaching matchup, but I believe it's the coaching and the quarterback play that will get the Ravens the win here. It is a slight edge, but nonetheless, it is an edge to be able to pull out that win. Give me the Ravens in an absolute banger to go for the second straight year to the AFC Championship and play those Kansas City Chiefs. I'll keep it on the right side in the AFC, move to the NFC, then we'll have our Super Bowl matchup and prediction, and then we'll hit that sponsor break. We got the Ravens and the Chiefs in the AFC title game, and I think the Ravens have learned everything this year that they did last year in falling so short, not having a great run game. Derrick Henry has been an absolute monster. I told you guys coming into this year that Lamar Jackson would have his best season as a passer, and damn it if he did it. Most yards, most passing touchdowns, least amount of interceptions, least amount of rushing yards in the last few years as he had, least amount of rushing touchdowns in the last few years as he's had. And even if it's not directly relating to numbers-wise, the play on the field has effectively been different. It has made opposing defenses think differently, act differently, and overall, Lamar has still been able to dominate a lot of teams in this league. Now, the record you might not think is sexy and it might not speak for itself. I think it does. I think you look at how explosive that Baltimore's been this year. I don't think they handle Kansas City, but I think they do win. Ravens finally getting to the Super Bowl. The Chiefs three-peat will be stopped here. Could be another absolute banger that the Ravens are going to have to go through after playing, the Buffalo Bills. Then they're going to have to play the Kansas City Chiefs, and now they will be in the Super Bowl. Ravens representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. Eagles, Lions. It's a shame that one of these teams has to lose as well, because I do firmly believe these are the two best teams in the NFC right now. You have the Detroit Lions at a 15-2 record. Nobody can say anything to them, being led by arguably the best coach, one of the best coaches in the NFL, in Dan Campbell. We love the coaching staff of of Detroit as well, with Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn. It's going to be hard for them to retain that camaraderie and really chase that level of success, knowing that those coordinators are going to be going out the door. And then you have the beauty in the Eagles as well, who have absolutely nailed it with their coordinators in the offseason. Again, Moore, Fangio, absolute masterpieces and masterclasses that they put on this year. But I do believe that this Lions team is just a little more special than the Eagles team. The roster is insane. Now, you do have Saquon Barkley. You do have A.J. Brown. You do have Devontae Smith. You do have that Eagles defense. And then you take a look at the fact that you got Jared Goff, you got Jahmyr Gibbs, you got David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta. It's crazy. You got Dallas Goedert for the Eagles. I mean, this could not be a better, evenly matched NFC championship. I probably don't remember one that's going to end up being this good within recent years. And yes, we always have good playoff matchups, and usually the conference championship matchups are very good as well. If the Eagles win, I'm not shocked, and I'd love to see my boy Jalen Hurts go to a second Super Bowl. But how do you not pull for the Detroit Lions, who literally went winless just 16 years ago, 17 years ago, being coached by the same player who was on that winless team? And now the Detroit Lions are going to be in their first Super Bowl against the Baltimore Ravens. Sean, Hurts might not even play Sunday. Philly might be first round exits. I've seen those reports, but knowing Jalen and Nick, bro, Jalen's going to play. Jalen's going to play for sure. And call me crazy, if Jalen for some reason did not play against Green Bay, I still think they could possibly win, because just draw up simple things for your backup. Yeah, Kenny Pickett isn't great, but give it to Saquon Barkley. Make some easy reads for him with A.J. Brown. Yes, that Packers defense could bring some hell, no question, but I don't know, Sean, call me crazy. I feel like I would still like the Eagles in the game on Sunday against the Packers nonetheless, and I, know you got some big time hope over there as well. We got a Ravens and a Lions Super Bowl 58 in New Orleans, Louisiana, to take home the trophy. And I think this is where the Lions injuries really start to rear its ugly head. You've got the Lions, who've got 15 players on IR, still playing insane football with 15 wins, going up against the Ravens, who will be holding the MVP in Lamar Jackson. Best season as a passer he's ever had. I think Derrick Henry could really overwhelm that Lions defense. It is truly going to come down to a matter of snaps, plays, if not one play, one situation, one coaching potential gaffe. I mean, Jim Harbaugh, is it Jim? No, John Harbaugh. I always get them confused. John Harbaugh versus Dan Campbell, Jared Goff versus Lamar Jackson, the clashing of these rosters, the clashing of these defenses. Give me Lamar Jackson to have his not third playoff win, because, obviously he's got some under his belt. Give me Lamar Jackson to have his third playoff win of the year. I want to say the fourth of his career. They're able to move forward. They win the Super Bowl. Lamar gets the monkey off his back. He wins the MVP. He wins the Super Bowl MVP. And Lamar Jackson will probably insert himself already in NFL history. You'll hear the talks of a top 10 to 15 quarterback of all time with 3 MVPs and 1 Super Bowl win. You can only count on one hand or two how many times that's happened. Lions, Ravens, Super Bowl. Lions injuries really show their ugly head. It's just the Ravens year, I personally believe, to win it all. And if they don't, Ravens fans are besides themselves. And if we have the Lions win, it'll be great also, because the Lions have been turning around for so many years. Now that they are finally going to get to this spot, they have all of the chance of anybody to be able to win this one. My gut tells me, my heart tells me, my football IQ tells me that the Baltimore Ravens will prevail. victorious in this one. Let me go ahead and pull this picture down here. Boom. Now we're back up. All right. Perfect. I hope y'all enjoyed the NFL playoff bracket breakdown as we went from Super Wild Card weekend all the way until the Super Bowl, where I am crowning the Baltimore Ravens to win it all. Let's go ahead and jump into this sponsor break of the show, as this is episode 88 of the NFL with AJL. I appreciate the hell out of everybody jumping into the show on a late Wednesday night. Again, I hope y'all are staying warm. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're right here tapped in with me on the podcast, which I super love you guys for. Of course, as always, y'all please make sure to like and share that stream wherever you're watching. Please subscribe on YouTube. Hit the bell as well so you never miss a post. That'll really help you, because again, we're starting to put out that short form content, the YouTube shorts, the reels, the TikToks are coming back. Please share the stream. Subscribe to us so we can get to 1,000 subs. The QR code there is every bit of social media and podcast content at the NFL with AJL. If you can't find us, you're simply not looking hard enough. And as always, we're sponsored by Buy and Sell with AJL for all your worldwide professional real estate needs. If you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, or invest in real estate, at Buy and Sell with AJL on social media is the best team to be able to get a hold of. You can get on their monthly neighborhood market report, their exclusive newsletter that they send out, and even be able to join their real estate meetups that they're hosting in South Atlanta of Georgia. You don't want to miss it. New year, new real estate coming up next Thursday, January 16th, Lion Creek Brewing in Peachtree City. It's going to be a happening. You guys will have to be there to really experience the fastest growing real estate community in South Atlanta. And of course, as always, we are sponsored by PrayStation Online at PrayStation Online, PRAY Station, ONLINE. Use code AJL at checkout. I really need to get a new lower third so you guys can know who I'm talking about. If you've been watching the show, you know it's the praying hands in the PlayStation colors, the best gaming and worship collaboration, gaming and faith collaboration, however you want to look at it, on the planet. Go and hit them up over there. Use code AJL at checkout. It'll get you a nice discount on some of your merch. You can get a sticker, you can get it on a hat, you can get it on sweatpants, whatever you guys want that logo to be on. PrayStation Online can 100% hook you up. NFL Black Monday was just a few days ago. Of course, we know Black Monday, after week 18 or the final regular season game of every year, the teams roll out their firings. We see the job openings, and now we know where the job openings are. Of course, the Saints and the Bears let their coaches go in the middle of the season, so we know that those job openings have been open. But let's talk about the 4 Black Monday firings that came across my radar, and one that actually surprised me until I looked into it. First one's Antonio Pierce. I'm kind of torn on it being warranted, because the Raiders have been a crapshoot for many years now. Of course, when you have the old coach ran out of town, and then you have Antonio Pierce coming in for the interim, and you have guys like Max Crosby saying, I'm going to be pissed if Antonio Pierce isn't the next coach. That's all fine and dandy, but where's the franchise quarterback situation? I mean, Jimmy G, Aiden O'Connell, what is it, Gardner Minshew now? I mean, come on, guys. What are we doing? So I'm a little torn on it being actually a warranted, deserving in the eyes of ownership firing. They felt like it was okay to do it because the Raiders have been a crapshoot. This guy was not set up for success. He should have had more than basically a year and a half to get it done. He did have a 9-17 record. Now, unfortunately, he did have a 10-game losing streak this year, which management is more than likely looking at. But again, outside of Brock Bowers, who are these guys really rocking with? You have to ask yourself that question. They averaged 26th in points and 27th in yards for offense under Antonio Pierce as head coach, so not very great. Defense was a little better, 17th in points and 15th in yards defensively. No playoff appearances, obviously no playoff wins, nothing of that nature. No real impressive part here from Antonio Pierce, as you take a look into his tenure as a former Raiders player, now as a former Raiders coach, and you kind of wonder what's next on the radar for him. I can't really tell you that. I'll just tell you that I never thought Antonio Pierce was the guy in, Vegas to really get them over the hump. We've seen this ownership before. We've seen this franchise before make decisions by, bringing in coaches that have maybe previously failed, or you kind of just wonder, why did they bring them in? And that was kind of my question when they brought in Antonio Pierce. But as a Saints fan, I can't say anything because our next head coaching search is the most pivotal in franchise history. Gerard Mayo. I was shocked, but I wasn't. It was a bad season, yes, but I was also kind of torn on it being warranted as well. Now, when you come out and win 4 games in your first year, it's not a great first impression. I'm kind of not a fan of, excuse me, quarterbacks, not quarterbacks, coaches getting fired after 1 year, because what did they really have to learn? What were they really able to accomplish? What kind of culture change were they really able to, implore or deploy on the team? You know, it's tough when you get fired after 1 year, because it clearly it was very ineffective in management's eyes, in the front office's eyes, and you have ownership breathing down your neck when you got a guy who wins, excuse me, 4 games in his first year as a head coach. But it was ugly. He started 1-6. You beat the Bengals to open the year. You lose 6 in a row. And again, 6 straight losses. And then you lose 7 of your last 10 games, including 5 ugly blowouts. One of those wins is against the bad Bears, the awful Jets, and the Josh Allen-less Bills. So take for it what you will. They were 30th in points and 31st in yards under Gerard Mayo offensively, 22nd in points and yards defensively under Gerard Mayo, and no playoffs. Again, another bad situation. You can say what you want about Drake May, but I still don't think he's the guy, and I wouldn't be shocked if years down the road we're sitting here, speaking the same sentiment. And not Gerard Mayo, Drake May does not have his 5th-year option picked up by the New England Patriots. I'm not telling you that that's going to happen. I'm just telling you what could happen based off how this season has played out, because it was disappointing for the Patriots. I don't think anybody really expected New England to really be able to kind of make anything. Now, you do have Gerard Mayo coming out and saying, oh, yeah, we got some cash and we're ready to spend it. But then you trade Matthew Judon. And then you're struggling offensively again, 30th in points, 31st in yards. And I'm not saying Gerard Mayo's an offensive guy, but all the results of the team come back to the leader, which is the head coach, and he was culpable for it. Doug Peterson was fired, and it was definitely warranted. I hated to see him go, because you see him come in after the awful Urban Meyer experiment, who gets fired right in the middle of the season. I remember I was doing Petty Sports when that happened, and Urban Meyer was just absolutely horrible. You have a Super Bowl winning head coach in Doug Peterson, who comes in, has that on his resume of handing Tom Brady, 33% of his Super Bowl losses. Same thing with Bill Belichick. The fact that you're able to come in and say that you won in a shootout in the Super Bowl gives you some promise as a head coaching resume. But when you go 22-29 as the head coach, you get Trevor Lawrence to a point to where it feels like he's that perennial number 1 overall pick. And now you have people, me included, questioning if he's a bust, because that's what he looks like. And now, yes, he was out for the year, and maybe this firing wasn't super fair because Trevor Lawrence was hurt. And you hang on to the fact that he had the immaculate 27-0 comeback against the Chargers in the playoffs. Now, albeit they were coached by Brandon Staley, but you have to take it into context. They were 16th in points and yards offensively. They were 18th in points and 25th in yards defensively. So again, that is going to be a reflection of the head coaching. And when you look at Antonio Pierce, Gerard Mayo's firing, Doug Peterson's firing, Doug Peterson definitely had the most to work with, whether it was Trevor Lawrence, whether it was Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby. You have Calvin Ridley for a tad bit, and then, he goes over to, what's it called? He goes over to the the Titans, excuse me. He heads over to the Titans. And so, God, I still remember when that man was a Falcon. So crazy. It seems like it was yesterday. You have a guy like Calvin Ridley who's able to make a little bit of noise, but nothing really. And you just don't feel like Doug was really able to do what he should have with those rosters, with those teams, especially in a guy like Trevor Lawrence, who, you feel like you have your quarterback. So it was definitely warranted seeing the fall off of Doug Peterson. And then the one that shocked me the most, the last one here on the NFL Black Monday firings, was Lou Anarumo. I thought it wasn't warranted at first, but upon further review, I can definitely understand why. Lou Anarumo did make it to the playoffs twice with the Bengals. He had a 5-2 record in the playoffs, technically himself as a defensive coordinator. And, I felt like Lou Anarumo was one of those defensive coaches to where he was great situationally. Like you might be giving up points all game, but if you're, or, points and yards throughout the game, but if you're in a situation to where you need to stop, or you need a certain amount of yards not gained in a pivotal moment, in a pivotal game, I feel like more times than not, Lou Anarumo, up until this season, was able to perform. And when you get into the deeper review, he averaged 23rd in defensive points and 24th in yards, including 2022 having an immaculate year of defense, 6th in points, 16th in yards. And, that was really the season where, you thought the Bengals defense had turned it around. You see Zach Taylor and Lou Anarumo come in at the same time. And, you know, clean up the Bengals from what they were, from 2 wins to 4 wins to 10 wins to 12 wins, and then you have a couple of 9-win seasons. And anytime you're falling back to mediocrity or just being average as a team, ownership's going to look at that. Management's going to look at that and wonder what's going on. And when you see that defense was in the low to high 20s, gets back to the single digits around the mid 10s or so, and then it falls back to what it was, that's unfortunate. And when you let a guy like Jesse Bates get away from you in free agency, now that is not the defensive coordinator's fault, but you're still rocking with a guy like Trey Hendrickson. You still have a guy like Cam Taylor-Britt, who is not all worldly, but can make plays in moments if he needs to. That's probably where management's looking at. It's very unfortunate for Lou Anarumo. I do believe he'll have another defensive job in the NFL, probably sooner than later. He'll have some suitors. It's just like some of these other coaches out here. They're going to be able to go pick where they want. Kirk Cousins is a player who's going to possibly be able to pick where he wants. I think Lou Anarumo, as a defensive coordinator, can probably go and pick where he wants to play. So y'all get in the chat, get in the comments, let me know what you think about NFL Black Monday, as we have Antonio Pierce, Gerard Mayo, Doug Peterson, and Lou Anarumo, at least just the ones that I put on here on Black Monday, actually eliminated from the NFL. They were relieved of their head coaching and defensive coordinator positions. And if I had to guess someone else to get another job first, it's going to be Lou Anarumo, probably followed by Doug Peterson. Now, Doug Peterson does have a little bit of an eyesore on his record because of his tenure the last couple of years in Jacksonville. But the next team that's being, looking to hire him will have to make that assessment when the time comes. Let's get into the New Orleans Saints coaching candidates that they're searching for here lately. We know that Dennis Allen was let go. We know that Darren Rizzi, who was the assistant head coach and the special teams coordinator, came in as the interim, did the best that he could, made a little bit of his case, but not too much, as he only wins 3 games to get this team from 2-7 to 5-12. And, that's not necessarily a reflection of Rizzi, because I know that this team played better under him, but he is going to be getting possibly poached. I wish we could demote him to special teams coordinator and assistant head coach again, but when you get moved up in the NFL, I don't really feel like you're in a position to where you want to get demoted, and we know that the Jets are going to be interviewing him. Rizzi is actually not here on my coaching candidates. I'm going through and raking the candidates that have been named for the Saints, either to be heavily interested in or they've already interviewed them. So at number we'll start. I've got 7 candidates here. At number 7 is Matt Nagy. Keep this guy away from my team, please. I do not want Matt Nagy as a head coach. This would be another Dennis Allen hire. This would be another vintage Mickey Loomis gaffe, because Matt Nagy was never solid as a head coach, and there was a reason that he was let go. I could argue that the Bears screwed up, I'm not going to get into the Bears coaching tenure. Y'all can go check the TikTok for the 200K video to where I was talking about it there, about the Bears firing coaches who do stuff for them. But Matt Nagy was not one of those coaches who did something for them. Yes, they were able to get to some sort of, success, a couple of playoff runs, but nothing major. Nothing major at all. Keep Matt Nagy away from my team, please. You can say what you want about him being the OC in Kansas City, and maybe some of the good vibes are rubbing off. Okay, cool. What's going on with Patrick Mahomes? If you want to directly correlate his results, what's going on with the 3-time Super Bowl champion and Patrick Mahomes? We never seen him have a season like this. We've never seen him have a fall off like this. He still got Travis Kelce. He still got DeAndre Hopkins. Now, we understand Mahomes, again, he has had somewhat of a down season. But I'm not going to say that Matt Nagy is, in a weird way, I'm not going to say he is responsible for Mahomes' downfall, because I think Andy Reid's toolage is the biggest part of that. It's not Matt Nagy. It's Andy Reid. So don't come over here and say, oh, well, maybe he's doing some good deeds over there. Maybe something good's rubbing off. No. You're going to pull him as an OC and make him a head coach with a team that was previously $75 million, under the cap, now $50 million under the cap. Quarterback doesn't want to take a pay cut. You got an old roster. You got to scrape the roster. It's a 2 to 3 year rebuild in New Orleans. And I don't want a guy as incompetent as Matt Nagy, who couldn't do it in Chicago, to come over here. At number 6, I'm going to have Cliff Kingsbury ranked here, another failed head coach. I don't want to try to retread the tires on him for all of the same reasons I just mentioned with Matt Nagy. At least, with the Cardinals, he did have a couple of seasons to where it looked like Kyler could have been on an MVP status. We do see a hot start to the offense, but, I don't want to bring in a coach that has been previously failed, because the New Orleans Saints is the hardest job in the NFL right now. You don't have a franchise quarterback. You don't have a good roster. You have a bunch of old players. You have a bunch of bad contracts. You don't have the trenches. You haven't hit on the draft in over 7 years, over 5 years, excuse me. It's not going to be easy. And if you think I want a guy like Cliff Kingsbury to come in who started hot and then slowed down, that's not the recipe for New Orleans. We will run that man out of town just like Matt Nagy. Now let's get to the top 5 coaches who I think could realistically be in the run for the Saints, who I think are the top 5 candidates that have been named so far. Number 5, Anthony Weaver. We know that he's been a defensive coordinator in the league. I want to say he was with the Chargers, if I'm not mistaken. And now he's a defensive coordinator. Oh, no, excuse me. He previously served for the Browns, Bills, Ravens, Texans, and Jets. I don't know why, for some reason. Let me check real quick. Yeah, okay, so he was with the Ravens. He was the assistant head coach and the defensive line coach. Then he was the D-line coach and the run game coordinator. He coached defense with the Texans, coached defensive line as well. Yeah, so, I mean, this is a defensive guy. How many times do I have to get on this damn show and say, I want an offensive-minded head coach? Ben Johnson, Kellen Moore, somebody who knows how to form an offense. Yes, Cliff is offensive minded, but he's proven he can't do it as a head coach. This is the hardest job in the NFL to rebuild. It is the least attractive head coaching job, which, yes, means you might get some unqualified candidates, but you have to be picky. This is the most pivotal franchise decision since Hurricane Katrina and Sean Payton walked in those doors and got us a Super Bowl with Drew when we signed him in the offseason. Of course, we go get it 3 years later. This is the most pivotal offseason in franchise history because you know that you know how to win. You know that you can come back from something as catastrophic as the hurricane, which almost took your city away. But now you have to find that within yourself again to be able to pull out of that and get back to the winning ways, which you know how of, which you know how. Excuse me. And Sean Payton showed you that. So I don't think a defensive-minded guy with nothing necessarily impressive to look at outside of his Ravens tenure is really going to do for this team. I don't want Anthony Weaver being a part of this team. Yes, he's going to be conducted for interviews, but I do not want a defensive-minded coach, which is why I have Aaron Glenn at number 4. I get it. He used to play for us. I get it. He used to coach with us. But if we cannot fathom the fact of scraping all of the Sean Payton principles out of this franchise, we will stay stuck. We're still under the cap. We're still signing bad players. And I'm not saying that was Sean's fault. But the way you do business when someone's in the building cannot be the same way you do business if you want to achieve success once they're out of the building. If it's showing you that it's not freaking working. Mickey Loomis, Gail Benson, Dennis Allen, who's thankfully gone. If we were to bring in any type of defensive mind, yeah, I'd be okay with Aaron Glenn because of what he's done in Detroit. I feel better about him than Anthony Weaver because I believe he has been a very impressive defensive coordinator in Detroit. It makes me nervous that he used to be part of the Sean Payton era, but it'd be better than Anthony Weaver, Cliff Kingsbury, or Matt Nagy. And then the name Aaron Glenn has been popping up a lot. Drew Brees has endorsed it, which I can understand. Mickey Loomis has already come out and says that he wants to go with somebody comfortable. That makes me absolutely terrified. Exactly. Wesley, what's up, man, bro? Titan screwing up. Michael Darby, brother, I'm traumatized by DCs. Yeah, absolutely. Me too. I do not want a defensive coordinator as our head coach. You chopped in at the right time, man. Darby, I don't know if you've been listening. I got Matt Nagy at number 7, Cliff Kingsbury at number 6, Anthony Weaver at number 5, Aaron Glenn at number 4. He only makes the top 4 because of his resume with Detroit, but he's still a defensive guy. I don't know if Aaron Glenn, again, here's what you're asking of this new coach. It's a 2 to 3 year rebuild. You have a shit ton of old players and bad contracts that you have to scrape, and you already have to restructure to get back from $80 million under the cap. You don't have a franchise quarterback who can take you places. He's coming off of an injury on his non-throwing hand. Your offensive line is abysmal. Your defensive line is old. You're one of the oldest rosters in the NFL. Again, if you are not 10 to 15 select players that are in my 2025 New Orleans Saints offseason wish list, I'll see you later. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. And that's not a slight to these players, but this team needs a heavy rebuild. I don't know if Aaron Glenn's going to do that. Number 3, give me Kellen Moore. I really like what Kellen Moore's been able to do with offenses in the NFL, whether you're looking at the Cowboys, whether you're looking at the Chargers, or whether you're looking at the Eagles, which Cowboys was okay. It was, if I recall correctly, he was solid with the Cowboys, okay with the Chargers, Now he seems like he's freaking elite with the Eagles. I mean, look at what Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley have been able to develop into together. Look at how A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert are still one of the most lethal wide receiver, tight end trios in the NFL. Now, again, is Kellen Moore really that guy to be able to come in and do this rebuild? I'm not sure, but he checks the box for offensive minded. He checks the box for mostly successful in his career as offensive coordinator. And maybe he could check a box as a head coach for the New Orleans Saints. I'm not sure. And number 2, give me Joe Brady, who is the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. You got to love Josh Allen's comment. Joe Brady hasn't done anything here. Teams should stay away from him. He's being extremely catty. He does not want Joe Brady to leave, because we remember when the Bills fired Ken Dorsey, which at the time I was a little unsure about, but now we see what Joe Brady and Josh Allen have been able to do for each other. Joe Brady is an amazing offensive coordinator. And if you have a guy like Joe Brady, if the Saints are able to somehow bring him in, I mean, that's just masterful. Now, I'm very curious, can he handle this rebuild? It's not for the faint of heart. It's going to be hard. It's going to be very, very, very hard to rebuild the New Orleans Saints. And it's not even a guarantee you can get them back to slight competition. But it starts with firing Mickey Loomis, which the head coach won't be able to do. You have to figure out a way to get out of Carr's contract and prioritize a quarterback of the future, scrape that roster, build your trenches. You need to draft, trade that number 9 pick back. Please trade that number 9 pick back, for God's sake. Stockpile picks. So number 2 would be Joe Brady. And number 1, even though I know he's more than likely not going to get here, Wesley Titans still paying variable another year. They got to pay Rand another 4 years and now got to pay another GM. Yeah, Rand Carthen letting go of Amy Strunk letting go of Rand Carthen was kind of crazy. My cousin was not happy about that. I will never forgive him for Zeke Elliott at center. What was that? Kellen Moore, I think? Yeah. That was horrible. That was absolutely horrible. So number 1 for me is going to be Mike Vrabel. And yes, I know it's a defensive guy, but when you look at the grit of Mike Vrabel as a leader, the way he was able to really galvanize the Titans to have the number 1 seed in the AFC with the most injuries. I think it was the most injuries for an NFL team that has ever clinched a 1 seed. That's freaking remarkable. When you're able to beat Lamar Jackson in a season to where he's winning his first MVP. Now, I know I'm turning the clock back some, but it was dumb that Titans let him go. Yes, he's been a consultant with the Browns, but Mike Vrabel is probably going to be the hottest head coaching candidate this year, next to Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. I know that Vrabel is defensive minded, but I would trust him to hire the right staff. I would absolutely trust him to hire the right staff for the New Orleans Saints and to go out and get a great, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. There's no question about that. I would love to be able to retain Cliff Kingsbury. I really would. Now, who's going to be our defensive coordinator? That's that's to be desired. Obviously, we have Joe Woods at the moment. So even if we not Cliff Kingsbury, Clint Kubiak, if we keep Kubiak and we keep Joe Woods and we have Mike Vrabel at the helm, I'm not tripping about that. I'm really not. We could use Vrabel's skill with getting the 1 seed with an injured roster. Yeah, absolutely. But here's the thing. Vrabel has been successful. He's been successful in his time as a head coach. He was successful in his time as a head coach in the NFL. And I just think the the Titans wrongfully let him go. I think he's a leader of men. I think he's a great coach. I think he can motivate a locker room. I think Mike Vrabel would be the bona fide gentleman to get through this rebuild. I don't know if a Ben Johnson could do that. Would I love a Ben Johnson to do that? Absolutely. I don't know if an Aaron Glenn could do that. Would I think it'd be awesome if Aaron Glenn could do that? Absolutely. But I think without question, the New Orleans Saints have to send the house like you're trying to recruit the number 1 quarterback on College Football 25 for your favorite team to go get an offensive-minded head coach. If not, go get Mike Vrabel. I want to see Mike Vrabel with that fleur-de-lis on his chest, with the Saints hat on his head, in the Saints gear, whatever we got to do. Go get him, New Orleans. It is the most pivotal offseason in franchise history. Vrabel puts pieces together that works. Exactly. Which is all the reason why I want Mike Vrabel as the next head coach of the New Orleans Saints. Final topic here on the show. Tyreek Hill speaking out in Miami. He clearly wants out. Quote, he needs to do what's best for his family. Not really quote, but he said he needs to do his best for his family. It's the first time he's not been in the playoffs. He doesn't like sitting at home. I personally think he's being a little bit of a brat, but I ironically have 10 NFL teams that I think are prime landing spots for Tyreek Hill. I did not take salary cap into consideration because I don't know exactly how teams can move it around. So let's just assume that every team can move it around the best they could. Okay. These 10 teams that I have here, which is about a third of the NFL, but Tyreek Hill is still a perennial player, I think would be really interested in him. Number one, the Washington Commanders. Jaden Daniels to Tyreek Hill with Terry McLaurin, Austin Eckler, Luke McCaffrey being able to get into the mix of that. I mean, come on. Cliff Kingsbury engineering that offense. Dan Quinn doing as well as he's done so far. Now, yes, we are going to be looking into the following year. The Commanders have over $100 million of cap space. The Commanders can go and get some players next year, and they could go and pay Tyreek Hill what he wants. Now, is Tyreek Hill potentially looked at as a cancer in the locker room? Yes, very much so. That is very possible. But are you kidding me? You give the Commanders and Jaden Daniels a guy like Tyreek Hill who can just take the top off the defense. You can kind of keep Terry McLaurin as that route technician, as that short to medium receiver. You still get freaky with Austin Eckler in the backfield. You can still have Brian Robinson coming out of the backfield as well. I mean, I think this team could take a major step up if you bring Tyreek Hill in. Give me the Atlanta Falcons as well. Michael Penix to Tyreek Hill. Are you freaking kidding me? Michael Penix, Tyreek Hill, Drake London. I'm not mentioning Kyle Pitts, but if Kyle Pitts decides to wake up, yes, you have Darnell Mooney. Yes, you have Ray McLeod, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier. With that defense, now Raheem Morris clearly has to engineer something better, but Zach Robinson, I felt like he did enough for Michael Penix as he did in the couple of starts that he did. I think the Falcons going to grab Michael Penix or not Michael Penix, Tyreek Hill would be absolutely insane. Talk about lighting the NFC on fire if the Commanders or the Falcons are able to land Tyreek Hill. I mean, Michael Penix has an absolute cannon. He could put the ball anywhere on the field. Tyreek Hill can be anywhere on the field. He can go catch a ball anywhere on the field. That would immediately take the top off of a Falcons offense that's low-key already scary. They just got to get the systems right. The Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson and Tyreek Hill might downright be unfair. Yes, you have Zay Flowers, Deontay Johnson. Take it for what it is. Yeah, you got Mark Andrews, you have Isaiah Likely, but to bring in that true number one or even number two receiver, I think it would probably go Tyreek Hill, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman. Insert Isaiah Likely in there as well. It would just be absolutely nasty to watch that Ravens defense have an exposure of speed like that. Give me the Buffalo Bills as well. I know Amari Cooper is over there. I understand you have guys like a Keon Coleman and a Khalil Shakir, but Tyreek Hill with Josh Allen would really be unfair. And I only put teams on here that I feel like are either contenders or they have enough of a situation to where they're on the cusp or the potential precipice of getting to the next tier of NFL competition. And I believe Tyreek Hill could take them there. Josh Allen and Tyreek Hill would be disgusting. Joe Brady engineering a Josh Allen and Tyreek Hill offense with a guy like James Cook and Dawson Knox who have been getting it together lately. Keon Coleman and Shakir have been showing promise. It would just add another insane element. You insert Tyreek as the number one, and the Bills had already had a 6-8 game streak of 30+ points. Are you kidding me? Tyreek Hill would just add to that. You could argue that the Green Bay Packers arguably need Tyreek Hill the most right now because Christian Watson's been banged up ever since coming out of the NFL draft. Yes, you have guys like Jaden Reed. Of course, Christian Watson can be that wide receiver one. Is it Musgrave? Of course, you have Luke Musgrave as well as the Packers tight end. And it's of course Josh Jacobs. I keep on thinking Aaron Jones, but no, Josh Jacobs. Like Josh Jacobs went to the Packers, Aaron Jones went to the Vikings. Everybody just kind of switched around, But you can argue the Packers need Tyreek Hill the most. Give Jordan Love something reliable, consistent. Take the top off the defense. I think Green Bay would welcome Tyreek with open arms. The Cheeseheads in Wisconsin would be absolutely faithful to him on their team. And I just think a type of offense like that under Matt LaFleur, knowing how great he is as a coach, I just think it really adds an insane element to this Packers offense. The Los Angeles Chargers. Yes, you have a Quentin Johnston. Yes, you have a Ladd McConkey. But where's that real number one? Tyreek Hill. Do you want to send him to the division that he was just traded out of? Possibly not. Do you want to keep him in the AFC? Possibly not. 3 of the first 5 teams I just named were in the NFC. but I think the Chargers could be a good fit. I really do. Justin Herbert, Tyreek Hill, Jim Harbaugh engineering that? Oh, come on. I mean, that would just be otherworldly. I mean, to give a guy like Justin Herbert with the decision making and the arm strength that he has, because when you look at the Chargers depth chart, Lad McConkey, Quentin Johnston, Joshua Palmer, Darius Davis, DJ Shark, Brendan Rice, which is actually really crazy. I want to say, isn't that Jerry's son? Yeah, that is out of USC, right? Yep, absolutely. I did not know that they took him. So it's like they really don't have a true number one receiver. They really don't. And if you come in and you're able to add him to that aspect of the team with the Chargers, it would be crazy. It would be absolutely crazy to see Justin Herbert throwing to him. I want to field some of these comments here. Ohio State beats Texas 38-17. I had 28-21. Notre Dame beats Penn State 24-13. I had 21-17. Chargers beat Texans. Ravens beat Steelers. Bills beat Broncos. Eagles beat Packers. Vikings beat Rams. Tampa beats the Commanders? Okay, Namdi. Thank you for jumping in the show, man. I like those comments. I don't know about Tampa and the Commanders, but I think everything else is the same. Tyreek needs to do what's best for his family, him and all. Oh, my God, Tyreek, no, you didn't. Him and all 24 of his kids. I didn't even really believe that man had 11 kids, but you know what? What do I know? I'm just a podcaster who covers the NFL. He's a quitter. Don't want Hill. That would be horrible. We already got Pitts giving up on routes. Yeah. No, I know what you mean. I know what you mean for sure. Here's the thing about Tyreek Hill quitting in that game, right? Because I'm not satisfied about it either. And it's a awful, god-awful look on Mike McDaniel basically saying that, yeah, I was just focused on the team trying to win the game, not my wide receiver that pulled himself out of the fourth quarter for no reason. They're sitting there on the bench, right, watching the Broncos-Chiefs game. Obviously, if the Chiefs are able to beat the Broncos, then the Dolphins have a potential way in, if I remember correctly. But the Broncos stopped the Chiefs 38-0. They look up at the scoreboard, see it in the fourth quarter. So Tyreek Hill's probably like, why am I about to play in the rest of this game if there's nothing to play for? While I don't agree with that sentiment, that's probably his thought process. But if you're going to step in the game to play the damn game. Don't come in and quit. So I see what you're saying there, Gary. Tyreek Hill to the Chargers, Namdi. Yeah, that would be crazy. Broncos and Buckeyes. Hey, man, Broncos look good. I think your Buckeyes are the national championship, are the national champions, Michael. No doubt about it. I don't think anybody looks better than them right now. Final four teams here on the Tyreek Hill trade destinations. I think Kansas City would welcome him back home. I really do. Now, he would go home with his tail between his legs. Fans will have something to say about it. I'm sure the locker room would too, because Tyreek leaves. He's talking all this shit about Tua being more accurate and throwing a better ball than Patrick Mahomes. Oh, okay, Tyreek, riddle me this. Who's got 2 MVPs? That's a rhetorical question. Who's got 3 Super Bowl wins? That's also a rhetorical question. Session over. I think the Chiefs would welcome him back. DeAndre Hopkins, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. Just go ahead and hand them the 4-peat next year if they win it this year. Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid with the Steve Spagnuolo defense. Yeah, they would definitely welcome him back home. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers could go make a grab at Tyreek Hill as well. Yes, you have George Pickens. Yes, you have Calvin Austin. But there's really questions in that wide receiver room. I mean, yes, Pat Freiermuth, of course. You got the running backs in Jalen Warren and Najee Harris, but no true, real, threatening pass catchers. Now, I don't think Mike Tomlin would put up with his shit at all. I really don't, especially with the stuff that he just pulled with the Dolphins. But the Steelers could 100% use a wide receiver one. Maybe let Arthur Smith have some of that toolage with Tyreek Hill, whether it's a Justin Fields that enjoys it or, a Russell Wilson, which I really enjoy watching Russ throw the ball to Tyreek Hill, but it's going to be left to be desired if Russell Wilson is actually a Steeler next year. I got the Indianapolis Colts as probably a sleeper team that you guys didn't think that could go grab Tyreek Hill because they don't have a number one receiver. You have a special quarterback in Anthony Richardson that's still looking to make his way as a real, bona fide QB1. I don't know if it's going to happen because he got benched earlier this year. And, you see guys like Pat McAfee talking about he just really thinks that this team is screwed the way that they're built currently. But it doesn't take away from the fact that I feel like Tyreek Hill on the Colts could really improve that team. Yes, you have a Michael Pittman Jr. Again, yes, you have an Alec Pierce. Yes, you have a Jonathan Taylor, Anthony Richardson, Shane Steichen. That could be a match made in heaven if the numbers can be correct, if they can figure out some sort of elite offensive system to actually have Tyreek be effective in there. Xavier Worthy as well. Yikes. No, don't go back to the Chiefs, LOL. Okay, you know what? You're 100% right. Everyone probably roasted me in the comments on YouTube when I post this clip. I'll probably rescind that Tyreek Hill take for the Chiefs because he's back with Xavier Worthy. But hey, I will say Xavier Worthy, Tyreek Hill, DeAndre Hopkins, you can probably shell out a lot of other, fourth and fifth stringers and maybe even some practice squatters that you might not need because, I mean, that's a hell of a receiving room right there. And then the last team, which might be a shocker to some of you as well, I'm going to say the Dallas Cowboys. I think the Dallas Cowboys could be well with Tyreek Hill, Dak Prescott throwing him the football. Obviously, you have CeeDee Lamb. He does go on IR, which is very unfortunate. You do have a Kevontae Turpin. You do have a Jalen Tolbert, if I'm remembering some of these Cowboys receivers correctly. Want to go check their depth chart real quick just to be sure that I'm not making another egregious take like I just did with the Chiefs picking them up. Yeah, you got a Brandon Cooks, Jalen Tolbert, Kevontae Turpin, Jonathan Mingo, and then you have CeeDee Lamb. Obviously, at the tight end position, you got Schoonmaker, you got Ferguson. But again, it just doesn't feel like you've got that true wide receiver one with CD being on IR lately. Yes, CD comes back. He is that wide receiver one. I think you can insert Tyreek as a 2, maybe even exchange him out as a 1. Brandon Cooks could punch in and be nice. And then you have a Jake Ferguson as well. But it's all going to depend on if Dak Prescott is actually able to make a return, because a guy like Cooper Rush, Trey Lance, that's not going to cut it with a guy with the elk of Tyreek Hill. Excuse me. Let me slow down a little bit. So I do think the Cowboys could go make a grab at him. Again, all of these 10 teams that I just named, Cowboys, Colts, Steelers. So 9 teams because I'm taking the Chiefs off. Cowboys, Colts, Steelers. Well, I'll still leave the Chiefs just in case because I could see them going back and picking him up with the way that the offense looked this year. If they don't three-peat, I could possibly, just because they want some more talent, go see him picking him up. I'm not denying the fact that Mahomes won an MVP and won 2 straight Super Bowls without him. I'm not denying that at all. Cowboys, Colts, Chiefs, Steelers, Chargers, Packers, Bills, Ravens, Falcons, Commanders, I think are some great landing spots for Tyreek Hill. Again, I didn't take it into account of cap space. I didn't take it into account of any contractual numbers. It's just, can these guys use another wide receiver? Can he be wide receiver 1 here? And really, can he add to the lethality of an offense? Does the offense really need him at this point in time on their team? And I would argue all 10 of those teams, and again, maybe outside of the Chiefs, would. Tyreek with the Colts could be crazy. Quarterback 1 and wide receiver 1 both taking themselves out of the game. Darby, you're a professional troller. I like the trio of Downs, Pierce, and Pittman. I wouldn't want to hinder that young group. That's fair too. That's fair. I really, that's really fair, Michael. I can't even push back on that because I do like Alec Pierce and Pittman a lot. And then, Josh Downs coming in, I remember they're able to pick him up, I think out of UNC, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember when they brought in Alec Pierce as well. I mean, the dude's just an absolute burner. Anthony Richardson was really able to make some nice things happen with him. So y'all get in the chat, get in the comments. Please like and share the stream before we get out of here and let me know what you thought of episode 88 with the Tyreek Hill landing destinations, NFL Black Monday firings. We went through and ranked from 7 to 1 the head coaching candidates that have been mentioned in the same sentence. For the New Orleans Saints, we predicted the Cotton Bowl, we predicted the Orange Bowl, and now we've got an amazing 2 days of football and an entire weekend of NFL playoff football to watch. That was episode 88 of the NFL with AJL. I love all of you, and I appreciate the hell out of you guys jumping into a late Wednesday night edition of the podcast. I didn't expect to have as many people in the chat and watching in the comments, but hey, I'll absolutely take what I can get. Of course, before we get out of here, y'all, please make sure to like and share the stream, subscribe on YouTube, hit the bell so you never miss a post. Let's please drive up those subs on YouTube. We're at 991, looking to get to that 1,000 subscriber threshold so we can really start monetizing this channel and content, bringing you guys even better takes. Of course, that QR code there in the corner of the screen is every bit of social media and podcast content. If you can't find us, I promise you are just simply not looking hard enough for the NFL with AJL. Again, we're sponsored by Buy and Sell with AJL at PrayStation Online. We're coming back with the reels, the shorts, the TikToks, and everything in between. It's a big push in 2025 for the podcast. As always, I love you guys. I need you guys. I will see y'all in episode 89. I'm looking to possibly do a late Friday night instant reaction for both of the games. We're going to be reviewing possibly Thursday's Orange Bowl, Friday's Cotton Bowl, but nonetheless, we'll see. Of course, you'll see the event come up if it's scheduled to happen. I'll see you guys in the